So the first of the two hadiths, which is related by Imam al-Tirmidhi, Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha relates that the Prophet ﷺ said, publicize these marriages, perform them in the mosque, and strike the duff for them. So publicize these weddings, these marriages. Some of the scholars, amongst them the Malikis, held that publicly announcing the marriage is a condition for marriage. If you don't do it, it's not marriage. In other schools, they consider it to be a sunnah. You need witnesses, publicizing it is a sunnah. But either way, not publicizing a marriage is against prophetic teachings. And not publicizing it, why are you hiding it? Right? Means that something was done wrong. Now, in this matter, and I don't want to give anyone bad ideas, so I thought twice before mentioning this, a lot of people are right in our own communities are entering into secret marriages. And this is just glorified zina. Right? It's glorified zina. It is against prophetic guidance. And according to a large body of Islamic scholarship, invalid to get married without the approval of a woman's guardian. Number one. Number two, it's a major sin even for a man to get married without involving his family. Why? Because it's considered to be hurting one's parents. In the normal case, what would make a parent sadder than their child getting married without telling them? Unless it's an exceptional circumstance. They're living overseas, there's no point of, they're living in the mountains somewhere, that's different. So this is something very serious. And anytime anyone is trying to get married to you secretly, right, something is off kilter. Throughout Islamic history, the scholars have said that registering marriages is very important. Because there's material rights with respect to it, and there's also the preservation of rights. Which is why across the Muslim world, people register marriages, and they've been doing it for ages, right? And part of publicizing the marriage is never get married without registering it with the authorities. To make sure you get your civil contract as well. And also that the marriage should be done in public. This is the sunnah of our Prophet ﷺ, and it avoids a lot of harm. Secondly, getting married is a very significant, not just social act, but spiritual act. So perform it in the masjid. If the way you've set up your nikah, your marriage ceremony, is such that you cannot hold it in the masjid, it's telling you that you're not doing it in a particularly blessed manner. Right? And strike the duff for it means sing songs, rejoice. And this is a neglected sunnah. Now I was reading recently, there's some literalist scholars who said you can hit the duff, but not melodiously. No, and that is poor literalism, because many of the hadiths in secondary sources make clear that the Sahaba used different types of flat drums. And to sing beautifully, right? And Sayyidina Umar, if he would see a marriage where people are conducting the marriage and there's no singing, he said, what are you trying to hide? And who forced this upon them, right? That so you're supposed to rejoice. And one of the reasons a lot of people in our community have drifted away from religiously proper marriages is that there's a false dichotomy. You either have a crazy, what I call the CFM, the crazy fitna marriage, right? Or you have the graveyard marriage, right? Honestly, although alhamdulillah, I carefully avoid attending marriages. I've successfully missed the marriages of some close friends too. Because you have to be careful what you dislike, because sometimes it counts like dua. So one of my close friends, I was supposed to speak at his wedding. On the way, someone told me I'm suicidal. It's like, best my friend, I'm going to miss your thing because someone's suicidal. Are you sure you can't come? So you want someone to die tonight? Right? So I sat down with someone. I fed myself a good meal just to compensate for the thing. Took him out for steak. But or you have these really boring weddings where, like, it says you have to pay a fine for smiling, right? And one of the sunnahs, and there's beautiful cultural practices around the Muslim world, and we have to revive these, is that a wedding should be one of rejoicing, but rejoice in a beautiful way, but in ways that are not against the guidance of Allah and His Messenger. And that celebratory tradition of Islam is very significant. The Prophet ﷺ said in another narration that's longer, related by Imam al-Bayhaqi and others, that, and hold the wedding feast, the walima, even if only with one sheep. And so that's the first. Islamically, there's only two celebrations. There is the nikah ceremony, and you're supposed to rejoice there. There's no sunnah related to the marriage itself, that with the marriage you have to serve food or anything. You marry, you celebrate. There's nothing against serving food either. You can serve food whenever you want, right? But there's no expectation. And then there's a second ceremony, which is the walima, where it's sunnah to feed people if you can't. Even if it only be one sheep, what if you can't afford a sheep? Right? Meaning with whatever you're able, even if it be snacks. In some Muslim countries, actually the ulama convinced the governments to ban the serving of cooked food even at walimas. Why? Because people are being so extravagant. So it's religiously harmful. Right? So they said only simple snacks. Right? And in other countries where I've lived, including Jordan, the ulama would discourage people serving actual meals, because they have big families and people go bankrupt just feeding their whole extended tribe. Right? And then there's something really beautiful in this narration. The Prophet ﷺ said, and if any of you proposes to a woman while they've dyed their hair black, then tell her and don't hide it. Of course, for a man to dye their hair black is prohibited. And likewise for a woman. One can dye one's hair other colors, but not black. Right? But if you dye your hair black, or you're hiding any other quality, right? You're hiding any other quality that may reasonably affect the other person's choice, whether it's a religious consideration or a worldly consideration, then you should not conceal things that would affect the other person's decision. There's many other hadiths about it. Go ahead.
Is it for the purpose that it's deceiving the other person? Like if someone's older and they're trying to look younger?
Yeah, so don't deceive the other person. Don't deceive the other person. Of course, many other things apply. You cannot lie or cheat. You can't, if you're 58, you can't say I'm 39. That's a lie. And we'll see the hadiths against lying in a moment.
Is it prohibited in Islam only for that purpose?
No, so according to the majority of scholars, it is not permitted. The reason it's not permitted, the Prophet forbade dyeing one's hair black. Because it's deception. And also spiritually, it's as if you're saying, I'm dissatisfied with the reality of age. Except in exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional circumstances. War, for example. The other exceptional circumstances, if you're in a line of work where you will not get hired, if you have a single gray hair or something, that's different. But then practically, they said, use dark brown, right? And dark brown conceals quite well. But dark brown is not black, and what's prohibited is black.
But it's still deception if you use dark brown.
No, it's not.
No, I'm saying if you are trying to look younger, for instance.
No, that's fine, because adorning yourself is fine, but deception is not, right? Deception is not.